Have you ever stopped to wonder how we actually make sense of really big, complex ideas? Things like love or time or politics? Well, it turns out there's this hidden code, a kind of secret architecture buried deep in our language. And today, we're going to unlock it. Think about a phrase like this. We're at a career crossroads. We've all said it. We've all heard it. It just sounds right, doesn't it? But hold on a second. What if I told you that this isn't just some fancy decorative phrase? What if it's actually a blueprint, a mental map that your brain is using to understand something totally abstract, your career, by pretending it's a physical journey? This, right here, is the key to conceptual metaphor. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start cracking this code that's hiding in plain sight, pretty much running the show on how we think and argue. Okay, first things first, we have to get rid of this old idea that metaphors are just for, poets and writers. That's not it at all. Researchers have shown that metaphor is absolutely fundamental to how our brains work every single day. So what makes these metaphors so powerful? Well, for one, they're completely automatic. You don't even think about it when you say you waste time. They're also deeply entrenched, like hardwired into our culture. But here's the most important part. They are systematic. This isn't just random stuff. It's a consistent, structured code for thinking. So how does this whole system actually function? Well, it all boils down to this really simple but kind of profound rule. Think of it as a one-way street for understanding. And this is it, the law of asymmetry. Our minds work by borrowing ideas from a concrete, familiar source domain. I'm talking things we can actually see and touch, like a journey or a building, and we map them onto an abstract, tricky target domain, like an argument or an idea. And it is a one-way street. We understand a difficult argument in terms of a physical war. We don't understand a war in terms of an argument. It never goes the other way. So how does this whole mapping thing work in practice? Let's break it down with a classic example you've definitely heard before. Yeah, this one's all over political speeches, right? Steering the ship of state or weathering a political storm. The deep conceptual metaphor at work here is a country is a ship. And our brain makes this connection in two really important steps. Step one is what we call ontological correspondence. This is basically just mapping the pieces, the nouns. So the ship becomes the nation, the captain is now the president, and a big storm is a national crisis. We're literally building a mental model of a country out of the parts of a ship. So to make that super clear, ontological correspondence is just about mapping what is what. It's how we give an abstract idea a concrete structure we can mentally play with. Okay, but this is where it gets really interesting. Step two is epistemic correspondence. Now we're not just mapping the parts, we're mapping the rules, the logic itself. We know from the real world that if a ship is poorly built, a storm can sink it. So we map that exact logic over to politics, and now we get, if a nation has weak policies during a crisis, it might collapse. This is so crucial. Epistemic correspondence is what lets us take real-world logic, our physical knowledge of how ships and storms actually work, and use it to reason about insanely complex things like economics and government. We are literally borrowing logic from one place to use it in another. Okay, so once you have this invisible architecture built in your mind, it starts to have a massive impact on how you see the world, and on how other people can persuade you. Check this out. When a politician says an economic crisis is just stormy weather that we all have to get through together, what are they really doing? They're framing the problem like it's a hurricane, a natural disaster that no one could have stopped. And that subtly lets the government off the hook for causing the crisis in the first place. It's a rhetorical trap built completely on metaphor. And I mean it. Once you start looking for this code, you'll see it absolutely everywhere, shaping how we talk and think about almost everything. Let's do a couple of quick-fire examples. How about the metaphor, ideas are food? Think about it. We don't just read books, we devour them. Arguments can be half-baked. We digest information. We're taking the entire experience of eating and mapping it onto the abstract idea of learning. Or this one, which is everywhere. Tech is a body. Why do we say a computer has a virus? Or that a phone died? It's because we're mapping our very intuitive understanding of biology and sickness onto complex technology. It just makes these complicated problems feel way more manageable. So now that you can see the code, how do you become an analyst yourself? Let's give you a toolkit so you can start deconstructing these things out in the wild. Seriously, you now have a kind of superpower. you can see the hidden architecture behind an argument. So let's walk through how you can start using it. It's a simple process. First, identify the phrase, something like, the economy has stalled. Second, locate the abstract target, the economy, and the concrete source, a car engine. Third, map the ontology. What are the parts? Okay, money is the fuel, workers are the parts. Fourth, derive the logic. The inference is simple. If the fuel runs out, the engine stops. And finally, contextualize. What does this way of thinking do? Who benefits when you see the economy as a simple machine?
When you get right down to it, it all leads to this one really profound idea. The language we use with all these hidden metaphors isn't just a passive tool we use to talk about the world. It's an active force that literally builds the reality we experience. So, what hidden architecture will you uncover next?